very excited about, as we do every October, celebrating Manufacturing Month. And who better to have that conversation than with one of our newest manufacturers, and certainly one of our more seasoned and probably oldest manufacturers. And we're talking about Columbia Care and Fairlead. This morning is going to be a little different. You will not hear from me, because you will be in the capable hands of Ms. Jessica Bedenbaugh as she has a discussion with the group. Certainly myself and Mr. Brian Donahue, who are on the phone, on the call, will be available for any questions potentially. But this morning, it's all about Ms. Bedenbaugh and her conversation with Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Pasquine. Just some housekeeping rules. Everyone, please keep everything on mute so everyone can hear. That's myself included, because as alerts pop up and things happen, sometimes they can bleed into the audio. The other thing I will tell you is we will have a few announcements when we get to the end, so I would ask if you can hang on with us, stay on with us, because we got some important things to let you know about that we want you to be involved in as part of the business community. But with that said, I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Jessica Bedenbaugh, and look forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Moore. So there's going to be two different ways that we can accept questions. I have a few up front just to get things going, but once we get going, you can either enter your questions via the chat, or we'll have a chance to unmute and you can verbally ask your questions too. So whatever you're more comfortable with, and we'll keep the conversation going that way. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists this morning, Mr. Ray Hernandez from Columbia Care and Mr. Fred Pasquine from Fairlead Integrated. Before we start with the questions, want to give each of them the opportunity to introduce themselves and their organizations and kind of high level give their backstories and what they do, what their organizations do. So just briefly, they can tell their story better than I can. So we're going to start with how I see them on my screen. So Ray, if you could just start us off.
Oh, well, thank you, Jessica and Robert, for even inviting me here today. So my name is Ray Hernandez. I am the pharmacist in charge and the market director for Columbia Care, Virginia. So we are one of the currently 4 licensed medical cannabis operators in the Commonwealth. We are a 100% vertically integrated operation, which just means we cultivate, we manufacture, and we dispense our own product. We are located here in Portsmouth, and our area is Health Service Area 5, which encompasses all of Hampton Roads, parts of Western Tidewater, the Eastern Shore, and up the peninsula to Williamsburg. That's our geographical region where we're going to operate in Virginia. I personally have been with Columbia Care for 11 months. I've been in the industry for about 2 years, and I've been a Virginia pharmacist for 11 years. And
wonderful, thank you.
Happy to talk a little bit about what we do after maybe Fred introduce, just wanted to.
You will. You'll be on the hot seat. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm thinking after that introduction, our company's getting no questions. So I'll. Hi, my name's Fred Pasquine. I'm the president of Fairlead. We are located here in Portsmouth, Virginia. We came out of a company called Earl Industries that was founded in 1985 by Jerry Miller and Frank Wagner. That company grew to become, it started with 3 people in 1985, grew to become a large business in 2012. General Dynamics NASCO purchased 3 of the 5 divisions of the company. The 2 divisions that remained became Fairlead, and in 2015, we purchased Davis Boat Works in Newport News. So as you come through the Monitor Merrimack Tunnel, from Suffolk into Norfolk, you'll see, into Newport News, you'll see our Fairlead shipyard on the right. And then in 2018, we purchased the assets of what was Ocean Marine and Yacht Center in Portsmouth as well. And that is that's essentially between City Hall and Norfolk Naval Shipyard. We our mission is to help get the warfighter home, and we primarily make products that go on board naval ships, and we also fix and repair ships as well, and that's primarily our business. I've been associated with Earl Industries, Fairlead, and General Dynamics for the past 14 years. Prior to that, I worked for a manufacturing company, Square D company, that makes electrical distribution equipment for 7 years, and then in consultation 2 years prior to that as an engineer, and been in manufacturing for 22 years now.
Wonderful. Thank you both for that background. Fred, I'm going to stick with you for just a moment. One of the things that I think is really impressive about Fairlead and kind of your history overall with manufacturing is the footprint across Hampton Roads. How do you see the 757 kind of moving forward with manufacturing, specifically when it comes to maritime and ship repair, because that is so strong in our culture?
Yeah, that's my understanding. That's about 57% of the economy in our region is that business right there in the maritime business. And we're in an interesting time right now. Interesting as in good interesting. Myself and our CEO Jerry Miller, we were able yesterday to visit one of the prime submarine constructors, Electric Boat in Groton, Connecticut. We traveled there yesterday and visited with their leadership team. And they're in the midst of a huge capital expansion of $1.6 billion, billion with a B, expansion of their facilities in Rhode Island and in Connecticut. And then in Newport News, at Newport News Shipbuilding, they're in the midst of a $1 billion expansion to their facilities. Ingalls Shipyard in Pascagoula is in the midst of $600 million expansion. And this is all coming because there's the introduction of a new ballistic missile submarine called the Columbia, plus the Virginia-class submarines that have to be made, plus Ford-class aircraft carriers. Plus, you may have heard a lot of talk lately about the 355-ship Navy and the introduction of all the unmanned surface vehicles and lightly manned surface vehicles that will also complement that. So there's this huge upswell in the need to build these ships. And Newport News Shipbuilding and Electric Boat and Ingalls, they've all stated this is how much we're going to invest in our facilities. The rest, we need our industry partners to invest alongside us and help us build that. So we're in the midst of a great growth curve. The industries that are in that, helping manufacture and fabricate sections of ships, components that go on ships, everybody shares the same excitement, and it's just it's interesting and exciting time.
That's interesting. What are some of the biggest trends, would you say, in the repair industry? Have you seen a lot of automation starting to come in, or a lot more technical expertise needed? What are the trends?
Yeah, automation is the trend. I mean, I remember touring Steel's facility in Virginia Beach 10 years ago, and that was the first time I saw a robot carrying a pallet of load going down the same aisle as people were walking, having all the sensors to ensure it doesn't interfere with people traffic, and everyone was safe. But that was 10 years ago. And when you look at what's happened with, self-driving cars, what's happening with even if any of us took our iPhone or Google phone, or whatever phone you have, and went back to your first flip phone or your BlackBerry or whatever you had, and you just think about how much has changed for us since 2007, the first time the iPhone was introduced. Well, that's happening everywhere, and so to have robotic welding for large structures, to have CNC equipment that you can program it during the day, and it operates lights out throughout the entire evening, so you can stamp out metal parts, you can cut it all. That's just going to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. And the labor force is changing, because rather than have someone who operates a welding lead, this is now someone who needs to operate a robotic welder. And that's the trend, and that's the shift, and that will not stop. I mean, particularly in the United States, we have what is relative a very high labor market. And so in order to remain competitive in that, automation becomes the solution to compete globally.
Yeah. On the note of the phone, I was just talking to my dad about how teachers used to say that, you wouldn't be carrying a calculator with you everywhere. And little did we know that we would be carrying such powerful computers with us everywhere, and how much that's impacted life. I kind of want to
Jessica, I carry my calculator still, though. It's important. Important tool in the toolbox.
So along with some of the trends that are really shaping the future of manufacturing and production, Columbia Care and that industry is really taking the intersection of a lot of different elements and shaking them up. And I would say there's the trend aspect that really gets a lot of our attention, right, when we say medical CBD oil. But there's kind of the mechanics of it. So before we talk about some of the trends and the highlights and the headlines, Ray, I was wondering if you could give us kind of a description of how the facility and the workflow and the steps take place through your facility, and how it goes from a plant to the medicine, just so we don't get captured in that trend piece first.
Yeah, that's a good question. And so we operate in a 65,000 square foot facility. We did not build it all out, so we left quite a bit of room for expansion space for future grow rooms and whatnot, depending on the need of the market. We didn't want to make all of our decisions up front and then find that there were some different needs that needed to be addressed. So if I could illustrate what the facility looks like, it looks inside like a hospital and like a laboratory, kind of combined. And again, so one thing that's unique for Columbia Care in Virginia, so we're operational in 15 different states and Washington, D.C. We have 63 facilities across the country with involving 39 licenses. And so what's unique about Virginia is that our dispensary had to be co-located with our manufacturing and cultivation facility, and we don't see that in any of our other states. So this cultivation and manufacturing facility would usually be its own building, and then we would have retail locations where retail locations belong. So this is a little unique in that our retail location is inside of the rest of the building. But yes, so it starts with cultivation. When you're first getting started, the only real legal way to do that is with seeds. Typically, we don't deal a lot with seeds. We prefer to deal with clones. But yeah, so we had to discover the genetics that we wanted, procure those genetics, and then begin planting and germinating seeds, and making sure that we have a diverse crop that's going to give us the different types of oils that are going to be needed for the medicines that we're going to manufacture. And so we planted those seeds to establish what we call our mother stock plants. And now these are going to be the female moms that will help generate all of the plants for production in our garden. We take clones from them One, it saves a couple weeks of time. Two, seedlings are very fragile. And three, taking a clone from a female plant guarantees that new plant will also be female, and that's very important, as even one or two male plants in this facility would be catastrophic to the entire garden.
Okay.
Oh,
So that's
and sorry, obviously after those plants grow and then we harvest them, we dry them, and then we do oil extraction. Virginia is an oil only market, so it just means that every product we sell has to be derived from the oil that's extracted from the plant. So that's going to look like hard pressed tablets and capsules and tinctures and vape cartridges, concentrates and things like that. But you won't see selling, when people think about marijuana and they think about, the green stuff in a bag, that's not allowed in Virginia. So everything has to be derived from the oil. And then maybe a little bit later, we'll talk about some of the ways we do that process.
perfect. Thank you. So obviously for our attendees, we wanted to have different types of production and manufacturing and some variety on the call. And Ray, I was wondering if maybe you could think about an industry that is most similar to the medical cannabis industry that for those that aren't familiar with it, we could kind of align in our minds. Would you say it would be similar to like a medical device or a pharmaceutical? Where can we kind of align along there just for a general thought process to help with education purposes?
I guess I would have to say more like the pharmaceutical industry. We have to follow the current good manufacturing practices, and we have to remember that what we are manufacturing is medicine that people are going to put inside of their bodies, and so just a very strict adherence to the guidelines, the lab testing that's required, the certificate of analysis showing, no contaminants, no pesticides, no heavy metals, no bacteria, no fungus, it's a very clean and sterile environment. And that's why I said it looks less like a greenhouse and more like a laboratory or a hospital.
So something that both of you have in common, even though you are much different industries, is security. And that's something that I think spans a lot of the manufacturing that happens specifically in Portsmouth and Hampton Roads because of the military and DoD contracts, and now with the medical and pharmaceutical manufacturing that's happening. So first, Fred, if you could answer some of the security and protocols that you guys go through, and then Ray will come back to you about like entrance protocols and who can come into the lab. But Fred, I know you all also undergo quite a few protocols for maintaining security.
Yeah, the work, some of the programs that we work on, it requires to have complete understanding of one, who's available to enter, who's not, and then two, who has entered and for how long. So as an example, I have to wear this badge. I have to show that as I'm in any visible space. Our visitors have to show the same. We have to be able to show who is a U.S. citizen and who is not, and for non-U.S. citizens, what's their need to be in a Fairlead facility, and we have oversight from our customers to ensure that we're meeting the standards that are required for us to be a defense contractor.
Awesome. And Ray, before you answer, I just want to get everybody's brains thinking. We'll be opening up to audience questions, so feel free to put them in the chat or get ready to unmute. But Ray, I know that you all have a number of security protocols and obviously access, redundancy, security issues, or checkpoints. So what happens for the lab to make sure that things are secure?
Yeah, that's a good question. And a lot of our security features are just standard operation procedures for what Columbia Care does naturally, and then others are state regulated. So, some of the state mandates are state police criminal background checks for every employee, color coded ID access control badges like this. So throughout the facility, we have nearly 200 high definition analytical infrared cameras throughout the facility. It's equipped with a security system similar to what you would see in a top secret environment on Capitol Hill. I mean, that's truly the setup we have. Every door, so 150 doors have keypads next to them. They're all electrically charged with electronics, and so just to go from one space to another would require an individual to scan their badge and maybe input a password as well. All of those movements throughout the facility are tracked. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I could pull a report to show every single door that I went through. We do what's called seed to sale tracking. So from a seed to a final product, everything is barcoded, tagged, inventoried weekly. Products are routinely weighed to ensure that everything's still there that should be there. So we're required to wear pocketless scrubs, and that's a Virginia law. So yeah, a lot of security. Only patients with a medical marijuana card would be allowed to access our facility, and even at that, they would be restricted to the dispensary only. For like visitors, for something like a visitor to our facility, the law is that they have to first register with the Virginia Board of Pharmacy as a visitor and explain the purpose of their visit and wait for approval, which would be required for us to allow somebody to come through the manufacturing or cultivation side of the house.
That is extensive.
Very, very extensive. A very extensive security setup and a very expensive security setup. Yes.
Yeah, I
just
was
the monitoring. Yeah, the monitoring in itself. Yeah.
Well, I think talking about thinking about some of the trends about medical marijuana or CBD, I think knowing some of those security protocols should answer some of the trendy questions. So that's great information. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I got a ping from Dr. Garcia that he had a question. So I'm hoping that he can unmute. I'll give him a second to do that and let him ask his question. Dr. Garcia?
Morning, everyone. Thanks, Jessica and everyone for doing this today. And actually, Fred and Ray, it's not actually that big of a difference as far as your industries are concerned, because I'm in both. And Fred, we build autonomous systems, USVs, and different types of unmanned systems. And I know a lot of what you guys are doing, manufacturing process science behind what we're doing. It's very similar to the medical cannabis world. So that's SIMA's side. And then the other side is Cativa. Cativa CBD is our brand that's in Portsmouth. We actually have a farm and extraction. We have extraction equipment, processing equipment, and manufacturing, all now done in Virginia, eventually in Portsmouth. But my question to you was, even for both of y'all, if y'all could help answer this, because this is an issue I have. Hiring expertise in and around the Hampton Roads area is a huge, I guess you could call it a huge need, obviously. And then trying to keep them here, not just because of the work, but the other types of cultural changes that are happening, especially in Portsmouth. There's a big change going on in Portsmouth. But as your businesses continue to grow, how are you attaining that talent that you need, specifically on autonomous system side for Fred, and then Ray on the science side of what you guys do.
Sure. I'm happy to go first. This very subject, Dr. Garcia, was discussed in this program I was fortunate enough to be in, called the Civic Leadership Institute. If those of you who are aware of that organization, is much like LEFCO might be more familiar in Portsmouth, but is for the entire region. And I was always an advocate that I think this is one of the most desirable places in the country to live, my personal opinion. And that's from growing up in Maine, going to college in Pittsburgh, living in Chicago, living in Cincinnati, and living here. This is by far the best. And some of you may have been like, well, yeah, you're comparing us to Pittsburgh, great. But I really think this region, the size of it, the cultural events that are available, the beach, the proximity to mountains. I really think the weather, Thomas Jefferson said Hampton Roads is probably the most attractive climate for human flourishing. It's just a great area. And sometimes I think we undersell that a bit and don't recognize that saying, do you want to come live near Virginia Beach? That's not a real hard sell to most of the country. Say, would you like to leave Topeka and come out here to the beach? No, that isn't always a hard sell. So we found when we need talent and they have to be here, that's not a hard sell. But the other part, Dr. Garcia, is just what we're doing now. We're seeing more and more that we have partners in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan that we work with like this very effectively. And the adoption of this, the positive that COVID has done this year is that the adoption of how often people do a Zoom call or go to meeting, the industry thinks it's been 10 years of adoption in a 6-month period. And that's why you've seen like Zoom stock go up to where it is, and why people would even entertain doing this. A year ago, if you said, we're not going to do this at the Renaissance, we're going to do it this way, nobody would show up. But because it's like we've been forced into this, in doing this, it's not, we all know this isn't as great as doing it at the Renaissance. There's something lost with breaking bread with one another and having that personal interaction. But when you can't do that, and we have this, then it works. And so we found partnering with other people in the region has been very effective. And then the third leg of that stool is just identifying the talent in this region that wakes up every morning and wants to do a little bit more, and how do we partner beside them and develop that talent. And that's a little bit longer term trajectory, but that has to be part of the algorithm. And those would be the three that I would say successful to us. That was a long answer, but I think we don't have challenges recruiting people to this area when we need to. We can get it done. Number two is using this year, it's been even more effective. And then the third and long-term solution is who is that talent who wakes up every morning with a little fire in their belly and would like to do a little bit more. It's having a system that identifies those individuals and helping them be successful.
I think this is particularly interesting for Ray to comment on, since Columbia Care is actively in the recruiting stages and has been for a little while and will be for a little bit longer. So Ray, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and just to Dr. Garcia and Fred's earlier point about automation, some may be surprised to understand the type of automation we use here just in cultivation alone. This isn't where cultivators are walking around with pots of water to water plants. This is where cultivators are programming recipes into computer systems that are then drawing those nutrients, that water, pH correcting, running the water through reverse osmosis, dechlorinating it, and sending those feedings automatically to the plants. And one table of plants of this strain may be receiving a different recipe than the table next to it. The light intensity, the humidity, the CO2 is all dialed in through computers and automation. So a very sophisticated program. But yes, we've been committed since, as employee number one here, to building a workforce that's as diverse as the population in the cities that we service. With that being said, we have some opportunities coming up down the road for some of those entry-level positions, and we're excited about that. And then there's also positions that just through Virginia law are required to have a certain level of experience or a certain level of education. So for example, our dispensaries here in Virginia at this point must be pharmacists and pharmacy technicians, certified pharmacists and pharmacy technicians in Virginia. That's not the case for us in most states, but it is in Virginia, similar to New York. Our senior cultivator, obviously needed to have degrees and extensive background in horticulture, not necessarily with marijuana, but in horticulture. Our extraction chemist has to have certain credentials. But again, one of the biggest challenges in establishing a new market like this in the medical cannabis space is there aren't a lot of people in Virginia with marijuana experience, right? Not unless they came from a state that's already established and they happen to have that background. And one of probably the biggest challenges we have is how many physicians and pharmacists right now have really any understanding of medical marijuana, right? It's the physicians who are going to be issuing these certificates. It's these pharmacists who are going to be making recommendations and helping patients find the right solution for their acute or chronic conditions. And so, yeah, there's a big education gap, and that's the gap that I think has to just get filled. And we're not always going to find the people that have the type of experience that we'd love to have, but we're very excited about training those individuals who are new to the industry.
So that brings up a question I have for both of you, and then hopefully somebody else will submit another question. That was a great one. Thank you, Dr. Garcia. But I know specifically for Columbia Care, and I think this applies to Fairlead as well, there's a lot of intersection with a lot of these organizations now because of the way that we have to do business in this changing and adapting world. It's not just isolated work, because we are having to navigate into different spheres and work with so many different people. And I shouldn't say having, it's a privilege to work with so many different people and align with so many different people. So in the example of Columbia Care, of course, there's intersectionality with the production of pharmaceutical products, but also the marketing, the education, the dispensing. It's all kind of wrapped up in one. So I'm curious about how that intersection plays out all in one place, and the concept of coming at it and having to manage all of those pieces. Because Ray, your background isn't traditionally manufacturing. So you're having to put all of these pieces together and live in this product manufacturing world when you haven't traditionally. So how is it managing that intersection of all of these different facets?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this is new for me too. So, my first 10 years in pharmacy was as a retail pharmacy manager, an HIV specialist, and a pharmacy district manager. So I have zero manufacturing experience, but with Virginia's requirement that a pharmacist oversee the entire operation, which is what I'm doing here, I really had to break it down into the three categories. We have cultivation, we have extraction and manufacturing, and we have a dispensary. So that means I need three different managers first off. I need someone who understands horticulture inside and out, that can manage their team of cultivators. I need a facilities, a manufacturing expert who can then oversee their employees and their operation. And then I need another pharmacist eventually to be my manager for the actual dispensary. And they would manage their pharmacy technicians just like you'd see at a Walgreens or a CVS. So we're taking it one phase at a time. Right now, I think we have a very good grip on the cultivation side of the business. We'll probably do a little bit more hiring as our garden expands. And then we move into that second phase. And then it's okay, you know, how are we going to extract these oils? Who's going to be the person to do that safely? And then how are we going to train on manufacturing hard pressed tablets and manufacturing sublingual tablets and manufacturing concentrates and oils, you know, with the precision dosing that's going to be expected from us. When people come to buy a product from us, they're going to expect that the 10 milligram tablet is exactly 10 milligrams and that it's safe and that it's effective. And so for us, it was by dividing this operation into 3 very distinct parts.
That sounds kind of similar to some of my conversations with you in the past, Fred, of kind of segmenting some of your bits and pieces to manage them. So same question to you, as you've moved up with Fairlead and moved up in the industry, how are you managing the different intersections of roles and segments as you've worked in manufacturing?
No, the Ray's answer was, I think it's spot on, and that is those are the fun problems that you get to solve. And I'm a believer, Jessica, that if we can understand the variables of a problem, every problem can be solved, right? And so I think I really like working with people who have an engineering training, because what was drilled into them was every problem, tell me what's given, and every problem, tell me what I have to find. And in that process, I'm going through what's giving, and then I'm also saying, here's what's not given. So I need to know, what I don't know, and what I have to go find. And so we start breaking down that whole problem-solving method in what Ray articulated. Say, okay, I can take every process, no matter how big it is. If it's getting this oil out to the market, I can start breaking it down in this segment. And I think really that's what leaders do, is that there's an ability of taking, here's what's complicated, and I'm going to simplify it, but not reduce it too much, but simplify it into common language so we can all be working on this solution together. And what I believe we found is when everybody can see that, and when you do have these groups that are somewhat feel disparate, but you can start saying, but here's where the company is going, right? Like what Dr. Garcia said, we really want to be a big player in unmanned surface vehicles. We need all 3 of our divisions working towards how we're going to get there. But when we put the site out there to say, okay, we fix ships and we make products that go on ships, and we have a shipyard where we could do that, and we have partners like Bath Iron Works and Newport News Shipbuilding, Electric Boeing, and you get all these companies working together, L3 or whomever. Now we can go do that, and here's how we're going to do it. But we have to reduce it down to the basic things that Ray talked about. That's we have to cultivate, and we have to manufacture, and we have to distribute, or whatever our business model looks like. We have to say, here's the essence of what we do. We want to be the best in the world at doing it. So let's be the best. Let's get the best people around us to do it, and let's go do it. I mean, I'm pumping myself up a little bit just talking about it.
I know everybody on the call is going to have a fantastic Friday. And then they're going to come and see Ray at some point soon for a fantastic meeting. I had to make at least one joke. I'm sorry, Ray. So a question submitted from one of our audience members, and I have to ask it because I am on the city's payroll. Why Portsmouth? Why Portsmouth for your business? So whoever wants to tackle that one first. And you are recorded.
I'll go first this time, Fred. And the honest answer is Columbia Care had decided on Portsmouth about 1.5 years before I came on board. So I honestly was not part of the conversations or the decision making for Portsmouth, but I have some ideas as to maybe why. Again, when we were awarded our license, it was for Health Service Area 5. Again, that's all of Tidewater, Hampton Roads, Eastern Shore, Peninsula, and Western Tidewater out towards Smithfield and Franklin. And when you look at that geographical area, Portsmouth is actually quite central to that region. And again, you know, 2-3 years ago, when Columbia Care was running through these ideas, we didn't know how many dispensaries we'd ever be authorized to have. All we knew was we were going to have one. And we had to think about patient access, right? So when we know that we've got people having to drive from Williamsburg, from the ocean front, from the Eastern Shore, from Franklin or Smithfield, you know, where's a nice central point for that to happen? I think that's one reason why Portsmouth was chosen. You know, and then you know that we're in this kind of industrial park or light industrial area. There's also laws about how close we can be to the nearest school or the nearest daycare, how many miles it has to be. So you know that's probably a reason why we're in the part of Portsmouth that we are. But I'm happy to be here. I spent most of my career as a pharmacist working over there on the corner of Frederick and Airline at that Walgreens. And so, you know, and much of my time in the military working at the Portsmouth Naval Hospital. So Portsmouth has been a second home to me, even though I live in Chesapeake. But I don't know the true details as to the conversations that went into this.
I think we probably have some real estate folks on the call that can help you with that that home address, but we'll turn it over to Freq.
Yeah, and for me, Jessica, I flip that question around and say, why not Portsmouth? And here's why: because our company, it started in Portsmouth in 1985, and the owner at the time, and still the owner of Fairlead, Jerry Miller, he's been a great corporate citizen to this city. He's committed to it, and the thing that stuck out to me the most one time was I was driving over to a meeting for an organization called Star-Based Victory that's here in Portsmouth, and I was getting ready to join that board about 12 years ago, and it was the first board I was ever on. And Jerry, as we're driving, he just said, "Hey, Fred, some of these kids that Star-Based Victory helps, they don't have a lot going. They just don't, but they got us, and we can give." They got us, and we'll give what we can, and that just resonated with me. You know, and it was kind of like we shouldn't underestimate what a couple individuals can do for the benefit of an entire community. And I really think, I mean, personally, moving here, I just think Old Town is a gem of this region. I think High Street. The vision for High Street, just, I mean, even our conversations about the restaurants earlier, it's a beautiful place. And the fact you can go to Legend Brewery, you can drive your boat up there. It's one of the only breweries you can bring a boat and have a beer and great food. So it has all this greatness to it. And I think I don't want to say the challenge is, why is there such a large percentage, like Ray, works in Portsmouth but lives somewhere else, right? And I think that becomes like the bigger challenge that we want to drive is like, be committed to a community. If you're a leader in this company, be committed to this community and live and work and play right here in this community. Listen, it's an easy sell. I think it's an easy sell, and I think Portsmouth has so many great things going for it, and it just have to keep promoting the great things and addressing some of the legacy problems that you know, depending where you sit on this, that maybe haven't been addressed or they're getting addressed now, that we support it. So we think we're committed. Fairlead's been committed since 1985. We want to continue to be committed to 2050 or whatever that looks like, It's just it's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to work.
So we'll be calling you. I'll pass you along to our marketing department, and they'll be calling you for a commercial shoot. So last question. So in a minute or less, look into your crystal ball. What do you think the future of manufacturing, whether it's your pharmaceutical manufacturing or ship manufacturing and ship repair, what do you think the future of your manufacturing industry looks like? Whoever wants to go first, minute or less.
All right. Well, I think the future of the manufacturing industry and the cannabis space in Virginia is going to continue to grow. There's a reason why 40 states in the United States now have legalized cannabis to some degree or another. And the good news about what we're doing here in Portsmouth is that this is where most of our growth is actually going to happen. The reason being, everything we do outside of Portsmouth, but yet within our geographical region, is going to be a retail storefront. All of our manufacturing and our cultivation will stay in Portsmouth and stay right here in this facility. And that's why we have the capacity and the room and the real estate to do 10 times the manufacturing that we're going to be doing when we open the doors. And that's just so that regardless of how big and how mature this market gets here in Virginia, we're going to be prepared to do that. And it's going to happen here in Portsmouth.
Perfect. Right on time, too. I love it. Fred?
I'll make it quick. I ditto that, period. That's it. Just make it happen.
Let's make it happen. Oh man,
I guess the one thing I would add is that I see this good positive trend of more and more young people seeing a combination of jobs where you get the opportunity to work with both your hands and your mind is noble. Like doing electrical work, doing welding, doing piping, like it's complicated and it's noble doing it. And I've seen a very nice positive push to say these things are good, and it's good for society. It's good for you. I see that getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that's one thing that we didn't touch on too much. We talked about recruitment a little, but we didn't really talk about workforce development so much. I would say in the next probably 3 to 4 months, we'll likely have a Let's Talk Business or some sort of event about workforce development, and probably some announcements there that we'll dive in a little bit deeper. So a little bit of a tease there, but I'm gonna turn it over to Director Moore for a couple of comments, but thank you both so much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you, Jessica. Let me just say first, thank you to our panelists for being with us today. You all have provided some great insight on what you all do, on the impact that you're having on the Portsmouth community, not only from a business standpoint, but from an overall quality of life standpoint. Want to say thank you to Jessica. Great job on the moderation or moderating, if you will, of the panel. And keeping us on track and keeping us focused. Thank you to everyone that has stayed with us through this process and through this call today. We track success by how many people start with us and then end with us when we finish this thing. But I'm glad everyone stayed on, and I'm gonna tell you why. A lot of this conversation is around the now, but also the future of Portsmouth. And I'm always looking for great segues and great ways to move into the next phase of things. So today, as of right now, I am officially announcing we are looking for the community's input and the community's feedback. Not just Portsmouth, not just folks that live in Portsmouth, but anyone in Hampton Roads who wants to give us some feedback. We are really trying to make sure we understand what we should be looking for as an economic development organization, and what we should be focusing on as an organization. Certainly our goal is to recruit new businesses, retain businesses, help businesses expand, and that talent retention and development. Okay. So we are, as of Monday, officially starting Monday, we are launching a region-wide survey that is open again to all citizens, business owners, whether you're in Portsmouth, whether you're in Norfolk, whether you just do business in Portsmouth. However, we want to hear from you and what we should be focusing on as we put together what I will call our next 5-year growth strategy as an organization and as a city. Our office is come up with about 15 questions that we feel really can tell us or give us some direction on where we should go as an organization. And this will work again in helping us internally, as far as in the office, and externally. Certainly, you understand we're coming into a new election cycle. And so things will change, people will change, new ideas will come on board. So we really want to have an idea of where we should be. So come Monday, we will have this sent out to you. I send out a reminder to let you know that it's up there. You will also be able to see it on our soon to be up Facebook page, as well as our website, accessportsmouthva.com. But I would really implore you and ask you to submit that survey, answer those questions. It will be up for 30 days. So it will be up from the 5th of October to the 5th of November. And we are really looking for the opportunity to really understand how you feel about the city, its image, its economic growth, and where we should be going and continue to focus as we go forward. So really look forward to getting those results. Again, thank everyone for being here today. We look forward to seeing you in November, first Friday of the month, which I believe, Jessica, you remind me of the date, but that November is Entrepreneurship Month. So we will have entrepreneurs on our panel that we will discuss and have some conversations with. Very exciting panel that we're looking forward to have for you guys. But as always, we are here for you as an office, as an organization. If you have any questions about what's going on, where we are on certain projects, things of that nature, when things are opening, like Columbia Care, just let us know. Give us a call. Don't hesitate to reach out via phone, email, and even text. But with that, I think we're 4 minutes early, and so that's good for us. So I'll say happy Friday, and we look forward to seeing you next month.